remember in 2013, I lost a daughter. It really affected me and my ministry and my life and my relationship with my wife. She had gone a full term and we were just waiting for the moment.
I remember it was 29 December. Prior to that, beginning of the, my wife had been, noticing a bit of bleeding and what, so we quickly rushed to the doctor. I could see my own child, and we looked at it there. And you know what was really difficult to process was, hang on, less than 24 hours ago, I was assured. I saw the scan. I was told everything is okay.
I spent 3 hours looking at my child until, I could only organize the parlor to come and pick the baby. And of course, that was a devastating moment because I tried everything as far as I knew my faith is concerned. And nothing worked.
Your wife has got to endure the operation of giving birth to a still child, a child that's not there, and yet the child is there.
It's important to know that we can, especially for fellow men out there, we can cry. I know for sure so many times I found myself crying. People will come in and want to say things that are not even relevant. And sometimes they come in thinking they are helping, especially cultural beliefs. Some people were thinking and telling me, oh no, because I had dreams, that I could relate to about loss and stuff. And I had one particular dream where I could not find my child prior to the death.
Nobody has ever taught you how to deal with it. And of course, people that are insensitive as to the words they kind of say, they don't know what to say to you.
Our relationship, it was tough because reality is grief is experienced even from a husband and wife. We experience it differently.
Nigel, my friend, how are you? Good to see you.
Wow, it's good to see you. How is it in Mutare?
Mutare is fine. We are enjoying the good scenery that we have in Mutare. Mutare being Mutare, it's so beautiful. And how's Scotland?
Scotland is it's cold, and we currently having snow and stuff, but we are doing well. We are doing well.
Yeah. Oh, great. Every other time, we help people deal with loss and grief, and we help families. We are there for communities, and we do a lot, in trying to create safe spaces and have families have these hard conversations about dealing with our loss. And it got to me to say, you know what? We've never really get to a place where we create our own safe spaces to share and talk about grief and our losses. And I was just thinking, I know you lost children in your life, and you've never really got, I don't know if you have shared with other people but we never really got to know what happened, what were the issues. And it's true to myself. I also lost a child, and there was never a time to talk about it.
You know what, Everisto, I think, so many times I've always thought that we need to create a space or to create a platform where people would talk about such issues. But to be honest with you, I do think these spaces sometimes will never exist. And I think we just need to talk about these things. If you remember in 2013, I lost a daughter. I don't remember very well, if I ever, shared with you and how it really affected me and my ministry and my life and my relationship with my wife. Am I right to say, I know we have known each other for a long time. I know we might have talked about it and stuff, but do you remember us talking about it? Or
yeah, I think what we just did was to mention in passing. I remember it was after listening to you having a conversation on this platform where you talked about it. And I said, hang on, let's talk about these things. And I don't even remember if I shared in detail my own loss in 2011, when I lost a child too. And it's been hard. Anyway, perhaps we have this opportunity today to be able to explore these things. What happened in your story, you know?
I remember very well, vividly in my mind. It was a Wednesday evening, and we had a midweek service. By then, I was in Rustenburg, serving that church. You might remember when I was in Rustenburg. So Wednesday evening, we were already, like, she had gone a full term, and we were just waiting for the moment. And then we went for a service in the evening, and believe me, you know, my wife sings. On that particular Wednesday, she sang, and as we were singing, I remember she retold me the story that afterwards, the baby was kicking at that particular time when she was, leading in worship. So we had a beautiful time, the best ever time, in terms of midweek services. And we got home, and we were so overwhelmed, and people were still SMSing us and telling us how they were, blessed with the service and stuff, and especially the singing. And then it so
Of
happened,
course, the singing, because especially the singing, you're not good at singing. I can imagine your wife just singing there, you know.
Yeah. So we got home, and that time I was marking. You remember me working with TEC College? So I was marking, and then all of a sudden I heard her vomiting, and it was just vomiting after vomiting, and I just thought it's a normal thing with pregnancy and stuff. Before I realized, it continued on and on. And we were fortunate at that time that we had a hospice, close by. We had nurses and stuff. So they came along and they checked it out, and they said, oh, no, these are early signs of labor. So we were excited. And so came Thursday morning, me being me, I wanted to make sure that everything was in place. So I ran quickly to get, all the stuff that were not yet in place to prepare for us to go to hospital. And then the hospital was 5 minutes away, so we went. By then, the pain was too much. And just then, it hit us to be told that, unfortunately, our baby was not breathing anymore. You can imagine the devastation. And I mean,
You know what? I think before perhaps we explore what was going on in your mind, all of that, perhaps let me tell you, it's almost like similar, but to yours, because it was a full term. Mine, I think I remember it was in 2011. And, and it was the 29th of December. I remember it was 29 December. Prior to that, beginning of my wife had been, noticing a bit of bleeding and what, so we quickly rushed to the doctors, and they asked us. And I remember 29 vividly. Towards the end of the day, I went to our local hospital, Pararinyatwa. Remember, we went there, and they checked out. We waited because I didn't even have a medical aid at that time. And I remember we went there, and they checked it out, and then the doctor said, you know what, I want you to go and have a scan so that I just check if everything is all right there. And they didn't have one at that hospital. So we quickly went to a private institution, and they had that. I remember looking at those scan, the tiny little baby, the child, they're excited. And we went back, and then the doctor says, no, this is fine. This is all right. Everything is just normal. You guys are okay. And this is 29th, and on the 30th, while it was towards the end of the day, I think it was 7, 8, 9 p.m. We just seated there, seated together, and and she just felt this severe pain, just a flash of acute pain. And in that acute pain, says, you know what, I'm struggling. I remember I was holding her hand, and she had this just for about 7 minutes there, and it was done. And she said to me, let me go to the bathroom, and just, check myself. And when she went there, bang, this child just fell to the floor. And we just saw this tiny little child on the floor. Man, I was gutted. I was just besides myself. Anyway,
Mm.
when you heard the news, or perhaps before the news, Nigel, what was the anticipation going through, the mixed emotion of looking forward for this, to hold this child as you packed those little bags and all? What was happening?
You know, my friend, when it comes to a baby, you know the excitement.
Mm,
I was excited. I drove, you know, the 3 minutes drive to the hospital was just overwhelming. I kept looking at my wife and saying, "This is our time. Shalom
mm,
is coming." We had already
mm,
named our daughter Shalom.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and then and then the moment they told me, and you know, I mean, just before they told us, you know, they excited, you know, these people you deal with, the nurses and doctors, they are well trained and they are
mhm,
very good, you know. I remember when we got in, they just made us as comfortable as we could. And
mm.
you know, the lady, I remember the lady very well. She was so joking about everything, and she was like, "Don't worry, it's your first time," and blah 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 blah. But the moment we were told that there is no heartbeat, trust me, it was a devastating moment. And for me, looking at my wife who was in pain and who could not bear the pain at that particular time, I think for a moment I shelved the idea that, you know, perhaps the baby is still alive. They're
Mhm,
just telling us they can't find a heartbeat, but something will happen. But
mhm,
I was concentrating on the pain that she was going through more
mhm,
than anything else.
mhm,
And I think the whole aspect of actually getting to say, to realize that she's actually gone, it took me perhaps another day because I had to wait for, you know, for them, for my wife to give birth to this dead child, which was also a very painful process because they induced her and she was in pain, and we had to wait for more than 24 hours. Only then they then decided that, wait a minute, let's do an operation. And I think the transition, the waiting period was the worst time of my life, because at one point I would not wait. You know, talk of food, you don't even think about food, you don't even think about anything else. I don't know with you, I mean, I can imagine your scenario.
So we looked at this child on the floor. You could see the formulation of this child. I could see my
Mm-hmm,
own child, and we looked at it there. And you know what was really difficult to process was, hang on, less than 24 hours ago, I was assured. I saw the scan. I was told everything is okay. And this is what I'm witness. I remember I just looked at my wife and said, it is what it is. We've got, and my mom was around. So I called my mother, and she came
mm-hmm,
to to the bathroom, and she wrapped this little child, and then we looked and we got it, and you know what? We didn't know, we were in that shock. We just didn't know
mm-hmm,
what to say to each other, what to do. And
mm-hmm,
the most painful thing now, I've lost to identify with shelving it for my wife. We then had
mm-hmm,
to find us to negotiate our way from where we stayed. I didn't have a car at that time. So I had to
mm-hmm,
wait for a friend to come and then take us to the hospital. The worst experience was to watch my wife on a stretcher for 8 good hours unattended in
well,
this severe pain. I'm just watching her there,
mm,
and you could see she's in pain and all that, and you then suppress that within you to say, I'm okay, and
mm,
let me just focus on getting my wife attended to. And of
mm,
course, imagine being then um admitted after the 8 hours, and then they had to do
sure,
that evac cleaning, which
mm,
something went wrong there, and the
mm.
pain.
But
It's
knowing
just
you, I mean, just to take you back to the part of you know, when you waited the 8 hours, how did you handle that? Because for me, you know, in my case, This was, I took my wife, I mean, she was in a private institution where they had everything. I remember very well, I had to push that doctor, come now, all those kind of things. I reacted that way, and I needed to see things happening. And I was almost like ordering everyone everywhere and saying, act now. In your case, how did you handle that? How were you
I'm sure
able to?
you know me. I love navigating and your thing, but that feeling of helplessness, where you're in a place where you can't do anything. In fact, all the doctors that I knew, and remember, this is now 30th. It's almost the festive season. People,
Yeah.
almost everybody's away. Every
Mhm.
single doctor that I knew that I called was out of town. And here I am sitting at this place. There's no one that I know. I'm at the mercy of whoever will come my way. And you know what?
Mhm.
Because she had already, lost it, it's no longer an emergency to these
Then,
guys. They've got to
yeah,
deal with other critical issues. And you're sitting there and just watching, the horror of just watching someone in pain, and you are
yeah,
helpless. You can't do anything. You've got
mhm,
that feeling where you kind of say, I wish I could take the pain, some of the pain. I wish it could happen on me. And then I'm
mhm,
seeing her in pain. And
mhm.
so for me, the focus is there. And of course, you've got to now deal with a whole lot of phone calls.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
8 hours, you would have notified family, and that family notified. And this is now late in the evening,
yeah,
these are late
yeah,
hours now, so you're now having to deal with the phone calls. You're having to manage people, all that. So you kind of put on so many hats at
mm,
any given time in order
yeah,
to just get through that phase.
mm,
But I don't know. And then coming back to here you are 24 hours later, your wife has got to endure the operation of giving birth to a still child, a child that's not there, and yet the child is there.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
how is that
You know,
reality for you to say, we being people of faith, that
yeah.
concept of God saying maybe there's a miracle gonna happen here? How did that?
I can relate to that in a very painful way. So for me, what made life difficult and complicated for us was because they waited so long. She lost nearly 60% of her blood. So by the time they did the
Hmm.
operation, she had lost her blood. She was
Mhm.
unconscious, um, and she had no idea what is going on.
Hmm.
So for me, the husband bit, for a moment, I forgot about the child because I knew that Shalom is gone. And
Hmm.
if I could, just briefly share with you the Thursday night, because this happened in the morning of the Thursday. The Thursday night was the most painful part for me. I could not settle down. I could not, I don't know with you whether you cried, but in my case, I could not even cry. I could not literally cry, but of course, I was crying inside because part of me was trying to handle phone calls, trying to handle family members who were there for us, church members who wanted to do their bit and who felt they needed to be there for their minister. So it was tough to navigate that. And my main thing was at that particular time to think about my wife. And I think let me run through because of we could go on and on, but I think it's important for me to share with you the moment I had to face my stillborn little girl. Um, it was only on a Friday, and it was Friday morning when I had to deal with, my child. And I don't know whether it was deliberate or it just happened. But after delivery, of course, when the baby was born, as they were, doing the final touches of my
Hmm.
wife, I was then given my baby girl to hold or to be with. And I remember very well, for a moment, as a man of faith, now the religious part of me, I
I can
wanted
perform a miracle here.
exactly, and it was, I hold this baby in my hand, and I remember praying, and I said to God,
Mm,
God, can you not bring her back to life?
mm,
And
yeah.
the only time I cried was this time when I hold my own child and I was saying, Shalom, can you not hear
Come on.
me? I tried, not in a dramatic way, but I tried all the things that I had seen, had dealt with in the Bible on my own child. And then unfortunately, nothing happened. And I spent 3 hours looking at my child until I could only organize the parlor to come and pick the baby. And of course, that was a devastating moment because I tried everything as far as I knew my faith is concerned, and nothing worked.
Yeah,
And
for
I think,
me,
mhm,
for me, it was just looking at that child on the floor. Excuse me, looking at that child on the floor, and as you rightly say, and because we are people of faith, I'm saying to myself, hang on, why did you leave me to this extent? I prayed, I called on you. I've seen you, God, perform miracles. I've been a witness to your miraculous ways. I've been good. And for me, the struggle was really that aspect of saying, less than 24 hours, I had the assurance that everything is okay. And all of a
mhm,
sudden, bang, it has gone pear-shaped. And then fast forward, I'm here at the hospital, 8 hours unattended, and I'm saying, I've been there for others. I've been
mhm,
that quick. People have just been a phone call away. When they needed me, I've just been a phone call away. And when they called, I'm here. And here I am, stuck. No one to my rescue. That frustration, that anger, that
mhm,
place of being lost for what do I do now? Where do I turn to, and where do I go? So these
mhm,
are the real struggles that we have as we share anyone. But maybe Nigel, then tell me, when you're with your wife, what was then the conversation? And for me, I was managing people, dealing with one phone
mhm,
calls, and remember, I'm in this casualty area in a public hospital, so people are freaking this. It's just pegged. And it's just
mhm,
chaos. So you can't just go. I remember I would always, suppress your crying. I was screaming and shouting within me, but
mhm,
outside I'm strong. And nobody, every other phone call that I was receiving, people were so concerned about my wife, which is so right. And I remember
mhm,
after a while, because I was just looking at my wife at this stretcher, and then I remember she called me closer to her.
mhm.
And because she had seen my pain and and she then said, "How are you?" And that
Sure.
just broke my heart to say, we are on our own in this. Here I am, I'm worried about it. And she, in turn, is worried. I would perhaps want to know what then happened when you then saw your wife for the first time after this incident. You have seen the baby, the operation has been done.
Mm.
How did you handle that?
Well, unfortunately, with my case, she had to spend 3 days in. I mean, she was unconscious for 3 days, almost like in a coma. So I could not converse with her during from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Only woke up on a Monday, and by that time she was surrounded. She was in ICU and surrounded by machines and things like that, and she had no idea what is going on. And I can only fast forward to you to a point when she get out of hospital. In fact, not out of hospital, out of the normal the ICU into the normal
Mm.
ward, when we could then have a conversation. And I remember she could only look at me and say, "But why us?" And I think what followed after that was a sense of, why me? Why? why would God do something like this to me? And secondly, it was more of saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I think perhaps maybe let me take us to start with how it affected us, our relationship. It was tough because reality is grief is experienced even from a husband and wife. We experience it differently. The way I was feeling, the way she was feeling was different. I had my moments. Sometimes it I wanted to be with people, and I wanted to hear people speak to me about other things, not about the baby. And she wanted me and only me, and she wanted to spend time with me. And sometimes, I could not understand that that is what she needed. I would act otherwise. I wanted to be quick to say, let's go and see other people, because my coping mechanism is to be around people. And because I'm so used to be around people, I I I, I cope that way. But she was different. And I think it took us time, and it took us intervention of other people and other programs, for instance, to get to a point of slightly understanding each other and beginning a journey with each other of saying, wait a minute, when I want to talk, all she wants is to be in my arms and just cry. And sometimes I would talk and and talk things that would not make sense to her. So that has been our experience, where we struggled, and fortunately we had to go for a grief share, which is basically a platform where people who have lost loved ones would come together. But how did this incident for you and Amy affect your relationship?
So, we never really, after the VAC clinic, she was in hospital, so I would just go on visiting hours. She stayed a
Mhm.
couple of days. And when she came out of hospital, the cultural side of us, then my parents took her away to our home.
Mhm.
She had to go to Masvingo and I was in Harare. So my parents were there for her. So I know it was just that struggle within her own space to say, I'm not there with her and I'm in Harare. I had to work. So we were separated
Sure.
for quite a while as the cultural aspect dealt with thing and what. But as you rightly say, me, I'm a people's person. I want to
Mhm.
be, my coping mechanisms when I'm there surrounded. I'm
Yeah.
almost like you, where I've got to be surrounded with people, and with my wife is just that different person who expresses herself differently. She would rather express it to me than to a crowd. And also, as you say, we are lost in the sense of how do we handle it, because it's new to us. Nobody has ever taught us. So we
Yeah.
just lost. We just don't know. In fact,
Mhm.
it was just we're guinea pigs, as it were. We just don't know. It's
Mhm.
life. You wait for life to happen as it is and not. But again,
Yeah.
since we're talking about how it affected us, it affect from that time. The festive, the looking forward to the new year, is
Mhm.
something that just not me, because it
Mm.
brings about different memories. So the 31st, I'm lost in my own space. I'm alone. My wife is in hospital, and I'm imagining what is life going on to her and all. So I've seen since 2011. Very rarely, I don't even stay on that when it comes 31st. I don't even stay awake. I just want to go. I just don't want to have anything to do with that period because of this
Yeah.
scars that it brings and all. So Nigel, take me through. How did you handle the people? Like for me, I know the unpronounced conversation of wanting to blame, of wanting to find fault, to say whose problem is it,
Mhm.
and all those things that happen, to say, people should have done that, or because I'm a man of faith, why didn't my God save my child? So is it real
Yeah.
and what? And the question that says, what, something is wrong. It could be, the cases of the family, or the
Yeah.
bad spell. How did that come out to you? Because for me, I know the unpronounced and pronounced conversation that people have, or the people that say it in your face, you are not strong, you didn't pray enough, and all that building up as you're trying to deal with your love. How was it
Yeah.
to you?
It was quite interesting when I share back, especially the bit that I was talking about when I said to you, I was for 2 hours with my daughter, dead in front of me. There's some people who said to me, maybe you didn't have enough faith, maybe you didn't pray enough, and all those kind of things. And I think for me, I just viewed that to be their views. Secondly, there was a sense in which between the two of us, me and my wife, a sense of self-guilt and self-blame, which started creeping in at some point where, for her, she would be thinking, what's wrong with me? Is it because I'm bad? Is it because we have sinned? Because this and that? But I think, fortunately, the grief share part was very helpful, because one of the elements that came into the grief share was to say, chances will be there that you want to blame yourself and you want to blame those around you, and of course, you would be people would be inciting into your situation. Maybe it's this and that, but I think in our case, the grief share was very helpful to help us to be conscious of the fact that people will come in and want to say things that are not even relevant, and sometimes they come in thinking they are helping, especially cultural beliefs. Some people were thinking and telling me, oh no, because I had dreams, that I could relate to, about loss and stuff. And I had one particular dream where I could not find my child prior to the death. And then when I shared with few people about it, they were like, "Yo, that's where you missed it. Maybe you should have prayed. Maybe you should have fasted, and so forth and so forth." And I think all I could conclude out of this was people would relate things that don't relate. They would find similarities with cultural beliefs and stuff like that. Some people were saying to me, you need to do some rituals, and so forth and so forth. And I would want to say, I think, having experienced it not once, not twice, but 3 times, I could still say today, as a man of faith, it's not about how much you have prayed. It's not about whatever it is. God is in charge still of things, and you never know what God has in store. And I think maybe I would want to end with this before I give you an opportunity as well. I had moments where I head on with God, like Job in the Bible, where I asked God, why? Why would you do this? And I think one of the books that helped me quite a bit was Where is God When It Hurts? Disappointed with God. These were some of the literature and books that were helpful to me and my wife, reading through them and getting a sense of how other people would relate to situations like this and applying it to my own life.
I think you're so fortunate, Nigel, to be able to have attended a grief group. And for me, it was a question of just digging deep within ourselves. And of course, the training would then help you. The ministerial training would then help you. But what I would want to say as we try to deal with people and all that, I think it's a question of being able to understand your spouse and find yourself together. When you found yourself, you are able to build this defense wall against every other thing that is coming in. To say, when that infiltration comes, as you're saying, when people begin to whisper certain things, it's you have got to believe in each other, and you have got to stop the blame game, as it were. But having said that, I want to really say to men out there or to people out there that there is help when you share your story. It's very critical to be able to share your story. And when you share your story, remain with your story, remain true to your story, because the other danger would be, as we are sharing our experience, your experience and my experiences are different, and yet we can identify with certain things, but there can be also that danger of infiltration. As people say, when I lost, I did it this way. It's not
Yeah,
prescriptive, as I may say. Share your
precise.
story, let it be descriptive,
Yeah, and I
and then
think
that
it's important.
helps.
You know, I think it's important to say it out there to each other and to others,
Mm,
to say stories will not be the same. Even
mm,
where you are saying understand your spouse and stuff. I thought I was understanding my spouse. I thought, I mean, by the way, at that time we had been in a relationship for more than 10 years. We had
mm,
been married. We had been married for 4 years. I
mm.
thought I knew her, and she thought she knew me. But when death comes, you realize all of a sudden, oh, we have never had a death or dealt with death together, and there's a new savior that you would meet, a new Nigel that you would meet, because you've never been exposed to this. And I think with that in mind, it's therefore helpful to be sensitive and also to make use of what is surrounding you.
I love that. Thank you. And maybe fast forward, because we need to wrap this up, Nigel.
Yeah.
Fast forward now, it has affected me in such a way that even my view towards when we look forward to the next child. I mean, for
Mm,
me, it affected me to the tune that I did not want to have any kids anymore. I just
mm.
said I can't handle it. I cannot handle it.
Yeah. Well, it was slightly different for us. In fact, I think one of the questions we constantly ask the doctors now after going through everything was to say, when can we try again? And when can we try again? And I think, just sharing some of the experiences that we go through when you have lost a child. For starters, there are people who have seen you, because the belly will go bigger. Everyone will know that you're expecting. I think some of the struggles we faced was people who would come to us then, or who would see us and say, "Congratulations! Oh, is it a baby girl or a boy?" How do you deal with those things? Secondly, pressure of friends. Some people are not sensitive, unfortunately. They would come and say, "Come on, just forget about it." There are some who are sincere as well. I mean, we were fortunate. We had a very good support in terms of friends and in terms of family members and so forth. But there are some who were hurting us in the process, as they are thinking they are helping, but in actual fact, they made things worse. I remember very well, I mean, we had lots of friends who had children as well. And I think it was so difficult for us to actually see a child of a friend and during this time, immediately after it happened. So I think I would say, experiences are different, but I
Yep,
think
yep.
as young people, we need to be aware and take deliberate steps towards helping each other, especially
Mm.
when it comes to grief. What are some of the things that you would say are, are pointers for others?
I think as you rightly say, it's that question of dealing with yourself, where you find
Mhm.
yourself you're lost because you don't have the experience. Nobody has ever taught you how to deal with it. And of course, people that are insensitive as to the words they kind of say, they don't know what to say to you, and somehow you don't even know how to respond to them. And also, the worst part is, as people are trying to be there for you, that lack of respect for privacy and for space, when because loss changes you, and people
Yeah,
still expect you to be that same old person when you're not. So I would say, it's the struggle of oneself. Within you are lost, and the struggle to want to connect with your spouse and all that. So I think people just need to find ways of creating a safe space to be able to express, to get in touch with your
Mhm.
feelings and your emotions during
Yeah.
that period of time.
No, thinking of that, I want to put it out there to say, grief is normal. And I think grief is normal, Evaristo. From what you are saying, and just thinking back into my own experiences, grief is normal. It's different for every person. Circumstances are never the same, but it's important to know that we can, especially for fellow men out there, we can
Mm,
cry. I know for sure so many times I found myself crying whenever, unfortunately for us, our son now, Dewell, he was born in June, and all this happened in June. Come
mm,
23rd of June, fortunately, it's after his birthday, but the whole month of June is tough. But
mm,
we have since realized, and I think, of course, it's a moment of faith as well. We understand that as people of faith, God loves us. We're fortunate to have a son now, two sons. Now I've got two boys. We're fortunate to have them. And because we have them, we can thank God for the gift of children. But of course, it doesn't take away the fact that you can still grieve. I could get on into talking about
mm,
other
mm,
losses as well,
mm,
but
mm,
reality is it may happen so many other times after this because for
mm,
us it happened again and again,
mm,
you know,
mm.
uh, and again it might not happen, but of course we are stuck. The reality is because we are human beings, sometimes we think, okay, maybe I'm done with it. I know of friends who have had more than 8 losses of children. They're still going, and how they're going, I don't know. Their case is different from mine. We have had 3 losses of children,
Mm.
and but reality is it's normal. It might happen again. It might not happen again. But maybe as we close, what are some of the things you would advise or that has helped you that you would want to share with others?
I think for me, what I'd really love to say to people out there is you don't have to be strong for anyone when you've lost a child or you don't have to be strong for anyone. You have to get in touch with your feelings and your emotions. Express what is going on in you, because when you delay that grief,
Mhm.
it will catch up with you. It's not healthy. So for men, for fellow men, I would really say, if it means breaking down, break down. If it means shedding a tear, be yourself. Be yourself as you handle,
Mhm.
because it's only healthy for you and your spouse or your surroundings. It's only healthy to be able to express yourself. So for me, that's really what helped me to be healthy, to find space, to express myself, to
Yeah.
cry, to grieve, to be angry. So it's that normal. And I would say to people, find someone to share your story with. It's healthy to
Yeah.
have these conversations where we open up, where we get to share. And
Mhm.
as you rightly say, it normalizes the thing that, hang on, I'm not on my own. In as much as my experience is different
Mhm.
from yours, but we find the common ground is we both lost children, and
Yeah.
how we express
You know,
that.
talking
And
of
as you rightly, yeah.
mhm. Talking of people who come into your space, I would like also to say, uh, through the grief share that me and my wife went to, one of the things that we have learned out of that was to be able to share our feelings with people in writing. It was very helpful. When we lost our daughter, to actually scribble a letter that we send out through SMS, email to people and stuff, and prepare people, because you know what? Death does not prepare you. When death comes, it doesn't say, get ready, now I'm coming. It just comes. So, what was helpful for us was to let our friends, our relatives, those who are close to us know that actually, as we grieve, please give us space. Please understand that sometimes we will not be wanting to talk. Even spiritually, those from the church, I was able to write to them and say, some days I would feel like not preaching. Some days my emotions are not stable, are not in the right space. So please understand when these things happen, and not to necessarily then say, oh, this is what it is. It's for a season, and it will come and go. I think that was what was helpful for us as well.
Thank you, my friend Nigel. I think we can go on and talk about this. But I loved connecting with you, Nigel, and to share our stories. And my hope is whoever will listen to this, or whoever is listening to us right now, will be
Yeah.
able to identify with some of the things that we said, and perhaps just find space to share your own story, my friends, to explore this talk of losing our own children and what. It's
Mhm.
something so different. The time I'll connect with you again and talk about what happened when I lost my mother. Oh my word. I thought I'd
Yeah.
lost I thought I'd lost my child and I could handle it, but it's a different feeling. And I know you've lost loved ones. I don't know. But hey,
Yeah.
this grief and loss, it's just hectic, man.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it's a different ball game altogether, and it's a different experience altogether. You might remember in 2010, I lost my dad, and it's a story for another time. But I think it's
Mm,
important for us to come back and chat again about losing parents and losing loved ones whom
mm,
it could be a cousin or whoever, because it's important for people to talk about how we feel, especially when I think immediately of my father, because I had so many plans for my father as someone whom I didn't grow up with, and
mm.
Everisto,
Yeah,
you would want to hear me talk about this, because even up to now, I still struggle with the idea. So I think
yeah,
let's meet again and talk about
yeah,
this. And
yeah,
perhaps maybe
yeah.
we can rope in a friend or
Yeah,
two.
we can.
Um,
Yeah, I think this can grow and Ruben hear other people's stories and what. But yeah, loss is just something you can never say, I'm well prepared.
that's true.
But you know what, my friend? Thank you so much. I love you. Regards to your family. Until we meet again, it was lovely connecting with you, Nigel. Goodbye, my
Sure.
friend.
Thank you so much. Take care.